Good afternoon. I'm Kate Gregory. I'm sorry my face is so small. I tried to make it bigger, but it just kept covering up my information and my pictures, so I hope this is fine. Today, we will be taking a closer look at Swiss culture. So, a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about, how I learned Swiss ways, how I'll be objective, Hofstede's cultural dimensions, a language analysis, my analysis of Swiss nonverbals, and my key takeaways. So, how I'll learn about Swiss culture, I will utilize YouTube interviews that I found to understand common Swiss life. I review videos from visitors for an unbiased perspective. I interviewed my family members who have lived in Switzerland previously for a small number of years, and they have visited Switzerland for over 30 years. And I will discuss their experiences as an American living in Switzerland. How I will stay objective. So I'll stay objective by focusing on real life examples. I will consider perspectives from both residents and visitors. I will observe cultural values very closely, and I will avoid relying on assumptions or stereotypes about the Swiss culture. So this is actually a picture my grandfather provided of a common Swiss local smoking on his pipe with his hat, which I thought was pretty cool. All right, so Hofstede's cultural dimensions, individual and collectivism. After interviewing my family, I found that Switzerland is both individual and collectivist. So it really depends on the region. For example, my grandfather lived in Geneva with his family, and this reflected more of an individualist mindset. So it was rooted in professional environment for him. He was hired by a French company, so he was there for business. So he said that was more individualist. But for smaller villages like Appenzell, this shows a strong collectivist culture. So an example I really love is called the Alp. The S is supposed to be silent, but it also depends on what region you're from, what you call it. So basically, what this is a homecoming for the cows. The cows have just been in the mountains grazing for about 4 to 5 months. And then when the winter months hit, their farmers herd them down through the village, and it's a huge festival that everyone comes. And my family has been multiple times, so they were kind enough to offer me these videos and pictures. So um, you will see in the video that the cows are dressed in these gorgeous flower crowns and their bells, they're huge bells, and everyone in the festival is dressed very traditionally. And this festival really highlights the communal spirit of the town and the village life. So here's a video my mom provided. You can hear the bells and also men singing, which is really beautiful. So you can see that woman is dressed very traditionally, and she's herding the cows. Also, what I thought was cool about this is the one day that children are allowed to smoke, which is really cool. I don't know why this day they're allowed to smoke or why they're allowed to smoke at all, but I just thought that was a fun fact I wanted to include. My granddad told me about that. All right, next is uncertainty avoidance. So, Switzerland generally has a low uncertainty avoidance. People are very comfortable with the unknown and ambiguity. So, Swiss culture, they balance efficiency and organization with relaxation and enjoyment very well. Their openness makes the Swiss people very welcoming, especially to visitors. So, when my family first moved there, they lived in a common neighborhood in Geneva, and my grandfather said that the neighborhood welcomed them with open arms, being Americans, and the locals really encouraged them to try new customs, and they showed them cultural openness and acceptance. All right, power distance. So Switzerland has a low power distance, meaning that people are generally treated as equals there. So status and wealth have little influence on their social interaction. They don't like to talk about how much money they make or what they've spent on something compared to America, which I feel is very common. An example is from Appenzell. So my grandfather told me about this. So the villagers come together to vote on their local officials, and instead of using ballots, they actually physically raise their hands to vote on who they want to elect. So this tradition really reflected to me how leadership and equal participation is all shared. All right, moving on to masculinity and femininity. So, Swiss culture typically leans toward the feminine side of Hofstede scale. So, they value personal identity, personal freedoms, and equality over traditional gender roles. So, it's not always the women stay home, the men go to work. So, similar to the US, Switzerland has seen significant cultural changes over time. So, um, women actually gained the right to vote and run for office in 1971, and since then, women have become way more active in politics and the workforce. All right, moving on to long term, short term. So, Switzerland has a strong long term orientation. They focus on the future and change and sustainability. Children are actually required to learn 2 to 3 languages outside of their native tongue. So, when my mom went to her boarding school in Switzerland, I want to say in fifth grade, fifth or fourth grade, she had to learn one new language, and then when she got to seventh grade, she had to learn another. So they really, um, by doing this, it really prepares the children for future success. Swiss culture also emphasizes hard work, cleanliness, and responsibility. It is really difficult, apparently, to find parking in Switzerland. So a lot of people utilize public transportation like trams, which also decreases pollution and increases efficiency. My grandfather also told me that they take pride in maintaining their clean streets, but not just for themselves, but for tourists. So my granddad told me he's he would see locals actually going to physically pick up trash instead of just walking by it. And he asked why they did this, and they said because they want it to look nice for tourists. All right, indulgence and restraint. So, Swiss culture balances indulgence and restraint pretty well, varying on region, of course. But generally, people are hardworking and structured, but they also prioritize enjoying their life and doing their leisurely things. So, their leisure is very highly valued there. So, a common way to unwind is skiing, going to festivals, going hiking in the Alps, and sharing meals together. So, this balance really reflects the Swiss value of both responsibility and their well being. All right, language analysis. So, sorry, my face is covering. The Sapir-Whorf analysis or hypothesis says that language shapes how we think and perceive the world. So, I thought this was a great example to use because Switzerland actually has 4 languages: French, German, Italian, and Romansh. So these language differences influence communication styles. So, for example, in this YouTube video I found, this Swiss French speaking girl was saying that Swiss German is more direct, whereas Swiss French is way slower. She actually said that she gets compared to a farmer because of how slow they talk. And Switzerland is generally a low context culture, so they're very direct. There's no reading in between the lines. In a YouTube video done by Swiss German for beginners, I do not know her name. I'm sorry, I tried to find it, but I just use her YouTube handle. So she says that Swiss people really take pride in their regional dialects and they love to correct people or show them how to say certain things based on their region. So in her YouTube video, she did an experiment with different German speakers using Alemannic dialects. So basically, what an Alemannic dialect is um it depends on where you live in this part of Swiss Germany, or in the Swiss German area where they speak Swiss German. So someone who says, oopsie, sorry. Someone who says, I'm going to the store may be different in Middle German than in Low German. So I thought it was really interesting to see how these different dialects affect how they communicate. All right, common Swiss nonverbals. I am a big fan of nonverbals, so I thought it would be very interesting to study Swiss nonverbals. So, body language, facial expression, and cues really reveal a lot about how Swiss people connect with one another. So, when women, typically close friends, see each other, they will do the three cheek kiss. And men, even if they're good friends, will do a handshake, not a hug. When dining out, it is considered rude to just open a bottle of wine and immediately start drinking. You must wait for everyone's glass to be poured and clink the glass individually while making eye contact with someone at the table. My grandfather told me that refusing to drink someone's wine that they have just bought is actually considered a faux pas. He said that he did this one day at a business meeting and they just looked at him like he was crazy. so, and actually, the stereotype about punctuality is actually true. It is very highly valued in Swiss culture, and even being 5 to 10 minutes late is seen as rude. All right, finally, my key takeaways. So, what really stood out to me about Swiss culture is how much diversity there is in one small culture. I noticed how this diversity, whether it's in language, traditions, or values, is genuinely respected depending on the region. So, the Swiss seem to do a great job at balancing their individuality with the strong sense of community. They're very deeply rooted in tradition, but they're still open to progress and change. Even the way they speak, think, and celebrate things like the cow homecoming reflects how proud of their culture they are and their diversity. So, this made me realize that identity does not just have to be one thing, it can be both shared and personal at the same time. All right, and here are my sources. I really hope you enjoyed this. I learned a lot. My family typically, I've never been to Switzerland. I'd really like to go, but it's very expensive. But we usually just celebrate it for Christmas and have raclette. So I really was interested in learning more about Swiss culture. So I hope you enjoyed learning too, and please let me know if you have any questions.